Yo, it's fucking shitty. It's fucking hell. Like, constantly fighting, constantly.
Some of them don't give a fuck about you, some of them do. But I want to go to one that at least respect me, I mean, and go help me out with my arms, other than that.
What's your current living arrangements?
Homeless.
You're homeless?
I still remember that night in downtown Los Angeles. The city lights were so bright they could hide just about anything except the silence. A man sat on the curb, wrapped in an old coat with a name still embroidered on it. He wasn't begging for money. He didn't even look up. He just sat there staring up at the city sky like it belonged to someone else. I asked him where he was from. He said Mississippi, but I guess it doesn't really matter. And in that moment, it hit me. In this country where you're born and the color of your skin can still decide just how close or far you are from having a roof over your head.
There's a lot of miserable people out here. A lot of people are miserable and depressed. They don't have anybody no more.
Mm-hmm.
They burnt a lot of bridges. And there's also a lot of mentally ill people out here too that should not be out here, that don't get high or anything and just living out here. So it makes it even more dangerous and, stressful.
Folks still love to talk about freedom, about hard work, opportunity, and the American dream. But when you walk those streets at night, you start to see the cracks in that promise. You realize that one person's bad luck is really just history repeating itself on someone else. Some call it poverty. Others blame addiction. But deep down, it's a story about race, about who gets handed the chance to get back on their feet, and who gets left out in the cold. Isn't it strange? In the richest country on earth, thousands still bed down under highway overpasses, their tents glowing faintly under the same skyline as billion-dollar skyscrapers. According to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, 2025, Black Americans make up about 13% of the U.S. population, but account for more than 40% of the homeless population, bearing a homelessness rate nearly 4 times the national average, around 63 per 10,000 people, compared to 17 per 10,000 nationwide. That's not just a statistic, it's the lingering legacy of redlining, of discriminatory lending, of rental doors slammed shut without a word. The Housing Up report from February pointed out that 64% of homeless individuals are Black or Hispanic. Don't you wonder how a powerhouse nation like ours lets these injustices drag on, turning the American dream into a nightmare for so many? In this article, we'll dig deep into that dark history, explore the escalating present, with homelessness surging 18% just this year, break down the devastating economic and social impacts, and finally, chart a way out through practical solutions. Yet, the big question still hangs in the air. Can America ever truly be fair if we keep turning a blind eye to this red thread, the one tying the past to the future of generations. This article is intended solely for educational and awareness purposes. It does not seek to attack, defend, or favor any group, race, or political entity. Its only goal is to encourage understanding, compassion, and responsible dialogue about the social realities of the United States.
It's hard when you wake up, you basically got to move around constantly because you got security and cops. Basically, like all day you're moving. They're moving us out, moving us around, telling us we can't be here, can't be there. And then, you got still regular people that live here.
From the cotton fields of the South to the segregated neighborhoods of the North, Black Americans were systematically stripped of every chance to build wealth through land or home ownership, a deliberate cruelty that still echoes relentlessly today. How can a nation preach opportunity when its history was built on denying it to whole swaths of its own people? Racial segregation didn't end with Brown v. Board in 1954, it slithered into housing policies that crammed Black families into crumbling tenements, while white suburbs overflowed with federally backed loans. Every decent documentary on homelessness ought to trace it back to redlining, because that's where the American dream started to crack. Redlining, that shameful practice of the Federal Housing Administration in the 1,930 seconds and 40 seconds, marked Black and brown neighborhoods as high risk on maps, slashing access to mortgages and insurance. And yet, studies from All Home reveal a staggering 45% of Black Americans reporting outright discrimination when trying to rent or buy a home in 2025. It's not just numbers. It's families turned away at the door, dreams deferred indefinitely, all because the ink on those old red line maps hasn't fully faded. Redlining in America was never just a policy. It was an unspoken promise that some families would forever have to start their lives from behind the starting line. And tied directly to Homeless in America, this legacy isn't some dusty footnote, it's the spark that ignites evictions and tent cities today. Families who could secure stable mortgages saw their kids in better schools. Families shut out from mainstream credit, rented in underserved areas, prone to eviction, struggling to build any real wealth. When rent climbs faster than paychecks, who falls first? Usually the hardworking folks without that financial cushion, and among them, Black, Indigenous, and Latinx people slip ahead of the pack. Is it fair when the starting line of the race has been skewed for generations? Then, in recent years, the market's been red hot, and affordable housing, those cheap places folks can actually swing, is slipping further out of reach. Those old red line neighborhoods, they're getting swept up in gentrification now, that so-called revitalization that shoves low-income people right out the door, with rents and property taxes shooting through the roof, pushing families farther to the edges, or straight onto the streets. That's no coincidence, my friend. It's structural racism that built in discrimination, dressed up in economic drag. And yeah, when you spot those fresh tents cropping up on the sidewalks, it means somewhere just out of sight there's been a no-cause eviction, booted out without a whisper of reason, a rent hike that hits like a gut punch, or a credit score torpedoed over a handful of medical bills. Those black marks might expire on paper, but in America's racial machinery, they never really vanish. You say, but hey, we've got anti-discrimination laws on the books now, don't we? Damn right, and that's no small thing, it's a foothold. Still, those new rules can't overnight patch up decades of lost equity. That wealth that's bled away generation after generation, landing folks on the curb. That's the long, slippery slope so many people of color have tumbled down quietly, bone-tired, and far too damn common. You know, sometimes I think America doesn't even realize how deep its own walls run. We talk about equality, freedom, second chances. And yet every system we build bears the imprint of an old prejudice we've never fully scrubbed away. Racism here isn't always shouted from the rooftops. Sometimes it's quietly etched into housing policies, loan approvals, and police reports. The problem isn't in what people say anymore. It's in what the system does. Take a look at the latest data. According to the 2025 report from the National Homelessness Law Center, people of color, especially Black folks and Native Americans, are far more likely to get fined, arrested, or harassed just for surviving in public spaces while unhoused. Think about it. When a white person sleeps in the park, it's down on their luck. When a Black person does the same, it's suspicious. Same action, but the label shifts with the skin color. Doesn't that prove justice is blind has always been more slogan than truth? And it's not just a matter of perception. The 2025 Justice Department investigation into policing patterns in Phoenix uncovered a consistent bias in how officers treated unhoused folks of different races. Black and Latino people face harsher treatment, more frequent stops and searches, and a higher risk of violence. These aren't isolated stories, they're patterns. They repeat themselves in Los Angeles, Houston, Atlanta. They're what make the term structural racism hit like a painful truth, a system that recreates inequality, even when no one openly admits to being a bigot. When I walk through downtown Los Angeles and see those tents pitched along the sidewalks, most of the faces I encounter are Black or brown. They tell me the same story, just in different words. They didn't just lose their homes. They lost their right to be treated like human beings. One man said to me, "It's not just poverty, it's punishment." And those words stick with me because that's exactly what homeless in America so often delivers. A penalty for being born on the wrong side of history. Now, ask yourself this. If a person's skin color can still decide who gets a home and who gets fined, what kind of freedom are we really talking about? And how can we tackle homelessness without dismantling the silent machinery that keeps some folks locked outside the gate? The truth is, racism in America isn't dead, it's evolved. It slips into a suit, strides into City Hall, and starts signing ordinances that criminalize sleeping on the sidewalk, sharing food in the park, or just existing when you're poor and not white. It's sophisticated, bureaucratic, and ruthless. And until we pull that off, these streets, the endless rows of tents and those weary faces, will keep whispering the same reminder that racism, if left unchallenged, won't just vanish. It only changes addresses. You ever stop and really chew on this, friend? How racism doesn't just whisper in the shadows of boardrooms and back alleys. It's the relentless grind that pushes folks, especially Black and brown families, straight into the jaws of homelessness day after day. Take the economy, for starters. It's no secret that wage gaps carved out by decades of hiring biases keep doors slammed shut. According to the latest from Pew Research, back in May 2025, a staggering 75% of Black Americans report facing discrimination on the job, turning what should be steady paychecks into a scramble for survival. And when those cuts come, like the federal food aid slashes we saw ramping up this fall, they hit Black households hardest, wiping out what little buffer they've got against eviction. Moreover, as the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis laid out in their March 2025 update, Black folks are at nearly 4 times the risk of ending up on the streets compared to white neighbors, with rates clocking in at 63 per 10,000 inches Black communities alone, per that fresh report from mid-October. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? You picture a single mom working 2 gigs, yet still 1 late rent check from the curb, and wonder, how long do we let this merit-based myth pretend it's not laced with old prejudices? Yet, zoom out, and the social scars run even deeper, like roots twisting through soil poisoned long ago. Homelessness in America isn't just about empty pockets. It's a thief that steals health, hope, and whole futures, amplifying every inequality racism sowed. The NIH's groundbreaking study, dropped just days ago in early November 2025, ties structural racism directly to these health chasms. Black individuals facing eviction or shelter life show skyrocketing rates of chronic stress, diabetes, and heart disease, outpacing white counterparts by margins that scream neglect. In fact, Oxford Academic's September analysis drives it home. Black people make up just 13% of our population, but bear the brunt of homelessness risks, with 64% of those unsheltered souls being Black or Hispanic, as Housing Up's February snapshot painfully confirms. And here's a thought that stirs the pot, one that gets folks riled up at the diner. What if we admitted that pouring billions into colorblind shelters without tackling redlining's ghosts is just another way to keep the cycle spinning, letting white flight suburbs thrive while urban cores crumble? Provocative, sure, but isn't it time we faced that uncomfortable truth? Racial injustice doesn't just live in history books. It lives in who gets evicted, who gets ignored, and who sleeps outside tonight. Linking it all, these economic hammers and social wounds don't swing in isolation. They're forged in policy fires that could, if we willed it, be doused. Project 2025's blueprint, splashed across the New York Times just 2 days back on November 2, threatens to gut enforcement of anti-discrimination laws, even scrapping race-based data collection that spotlights these disparities. Consequently, without that lens, homeless in America becomes an invisible epidemic for the most vulnerable. On X, voices like Ananda685806664 from late October call it outright economic genocide in places like Georgia, where Black poverty funnels straight into Tent City. And at Arctotherium42, he gripes about the bottom rung costs of social housing. But dang if that doesn't miss how those dollars are band-aids on bullet wounds from systemic bias. So I ask you, old-timer to old-timer, if we're truly the land of the free, why do we chain so many to the streets with invisible iron? Ponder that as the nights grow colder, it's on us to rewrite this chapter, profoundly and without delay. You know, when I sit back and chew on this endless loop of racism feeding into homelessness, folks sleeping rough on rain-slicked sidewalks, their stories etched in every weary line on their faces, it hits you right in the gut, doesn't it? Straight up, the fixes we've got to chase aren't some pie-in-the-sky dreams. They're gritty, doable steps that demand we roll up our sleeves. Take the call from Johns Hopkins back in August, plain as day. The simplest, most powerful play is keeping people housed before they tumble off the edge. Pump real dollars into affordable rentals that don't gouge folks based on their zip code or skin tone. Heck, the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness is yelling this from the rooftops, pushing for more accessible housing vouchers and cracking down hard on discrimination that sneaks in like a thief in the night. And with the Justice Department's fresh guidelines from July, we're talking enforceable rules that make landlords sweat if they play the race card. Imagine that ripple. Fewer evictions in Black and brown neighborhoods, where rental hikes are already jacking up homelessness rates fourfold, per that gut-wrenching report just last month. But what if we went further, fiercely tying federal funds to anti-bias audits, so every subsidized unit becomes a bulwark against the storm? You know, sometimes I think about how strange it is that in the richest country on earth, having a home can still depend on the color of your skin. In 2025, federal data showed that Black Americans made up only 13% of the population, but more than 1/3 of those without housing. That's not a coincidence. It's a legacy. It's the quiet echo of redlining, job discrimination, and a justice system that still treats poverty as a crime. And yet, when we talk about homeless in America, most people still frame it as an individual failure, not as a mirror of who we've become as a nation. So, tell me, how can we talk about equality when a Black mother in Los Angeles is 4 times more likely to lose her home than a white family just a few miles away? And how can we celebrate progress when affordable housing is still out of reach for the same communities that built this country's backbone? It's hard not to feel conflicted, because on one hand, America promises fairness. On the other, it keeps pulling the rug out from under the same people, generation after generation. Maybe that's what we refuse to face, that homelessness isn't just about losing shelter, it's about losing belonging. And until we admit that truth, the dream of home will remain unevenly shared, divided by color, shadowed by history, and quietly denied. Conclusion: at the end of the day, maybe the real measure of a nation isn't how tall its buildings rise, but how deeply it cares for those left to sleep beneath them. America has the power, the wealth, and the space to end homelessness. But it also carries a wound that keeps reopening, the color line. As long as the weight of history still decides who gets the keys and who gets the curb, we can't call this freedom complete.